In other words, VATS lets you pause for a moment and makes Mr. Scary go away. With VATS, personal defense is a snap.
Fallout 3 is rightly considered one of the greatest games of all time. It was a revelation of entertainment, offering the freedom to explore a beautifully crafted, richly detailed post-apocalyptic world filled with thoughtful stories and exciting characters. Playing it for the first time was an announcement to my soul that the perfect game can exist. Critics and fans of the time agree. Nearly every person who touched Fallout 3 couldn't help but heap unending praise and adoration for everything it brought to the table. But does it deserve to continue receiving gobs of universal love and respect so many years later? I want to revisit Fallout 3, specifically its main quest, and find out if it's a masterclass of world building and game design, or an overhyped relic of the past. I recognize that reducing a game like Fallout 3 to just its main quest is foolish. Everyone knows that the best part of a Bethesda game studio experience lie beyond the beaten path in the unmarked locations, side quests, and random encounters conspiring to create a living, breathing, intimate world. However, I believe that Fallout 3's main quest represents everything that makes it unique, but also what holds it back from potentially reaching the upper crust of gaming royalty. Let's ask the question. Is Fallout 3 overrated and underhated?
Hello, it's me, Sweet Tooth. I'm here to tell you that you clicked on this video. Subscribe to Drew Desidue and leave a like, or I will move everything in your home slightly to the left. Nothing will feel right, and you won't know why. Choose wisely, boys and girls.
The vacuum tubes of a long-neglected radio spark to life. One last gasp for old time's sake. The camera slowly backs away as music spills out. The shot pulls further from the radio, revealing a devastated landscape. Rubble and ash fill the streets. Symbols of the old world stand proud in stark contrast to everything around them. The juxtaposition of a confident 1950s space-age pre-war against the harsh Stone Age apocalypse it created is a signature of Fallout's style, and Bethesda nailed it. It is a perfect primer for what's to come and a dose of nostalgia for returning fans of the series, as it harkens back to the original games from Black Isle Studios. Fallout 3 wants you to know that it's an evolved version of the games whose footsteps it's following. Everything that made Fallout special is here, modernized for a new generation. Before entering the wide-open world to carve out a life in the nuclear nightmare, we must first traverse the choppy waters of childhood. A flash of light ushers us into existence as we emerge from our mother's womb. Our dad, Liam Neeson, is the first face we see and immediately checks our undercarriage to see what we're working with. I chose to be a boy for this, but not just any boy. Meet such a big boy. Don't let his blinding pale skin and swashbuckling mustache fool you. His name is no joke. By the time he's old enough to grow facial hair, it'll already be too late. Our mother suffered some complications with childbirth that couldn't be overcome. Before we take our first step or utter our first word, we experience loss. 1 year later, we opened our eyes into a bedroom where Liam Neeson called us over to him.
There you go. My goodness, just a year old and already walking like a pro.
This is our first chance to test out the controls. It's a simple walk to our dad before he traps us in the playpen. His tricks only work for a short time as we can open the door without effort, allowing us to read our book and play with our toys. The Your Special book is how we choose what person we will be. What attributes do we want to embody? I decided to build such a big boy as a gun-obsessed fats addict. Strength is an afterthought, his social skills are non-existent. He can land a headshot from a quarter mile away on a moving target, but ask him to do a pull-up or flirt with a pretty girl, and he'll probably shit his pants and cry. That a boy. Liam Neeson returns to the room, surprised we have torn ourselves free from his playpen prison. He sits us down to recite our mother's favorite Bible verse. Revelation 21:6 serves as a constant refrain and thesis statement for the game. It's not subtle, but it's a beautiful and powerful sentiment. Following that, we are invited to a playdate with our friend. Walking through the door, we flash forward to our 10th birthday party, and it's a rager. All of our friends are there. A robot gets in on the action, and an old lady gives us a sweet roll. It couldn't be a more joyous occasion. We get our very own Pip-Boy 3000, a wrist-mounted computer that will become our closest and most trusted friend in our travels. It lets us manage our inventory, keep track of our progress, and find our way through the world. Amata is the only kid who doesn't despise us. She helped set up the party and even gave us a copy of our favorite comic book, Grognak the Barbarian. But what's that? A local ruffian has taken an interest in your sweet roll.
I'm hungry, and that stupid robot destroyed the cake. Give me that sweet roll you got from Old Lady Palmer.
You have a few options on how to handle the situation. You can simply hand over the sweet roll in exchange for your dignity.
Yeah, right. Thanks, loser. Oh, and happy birthday.
You can remind the kid of his mom's alcoholism.
Don't you talk about my mom, you little punk.
And start a fist fight that you are physically incapable of participating in. You can alert the proper authorities like a no-good tattletale.
Well, no harm done then.
And you can spit on the sweet roll before giving it to him.
Ugh, I don't want your nerd cooties.
It's simple, but this is our first taste of choice. Situations will arise, and it helps to know that we have options for handling them. Every road in the early vault section leads to the same place, but this encounter introduces us to our ability to assert our will on the world. Our dad's friend Jonas tells us he's got one more gift for us down on the reactor level. It's a BB gun. At just 10 years old, we have the power to shut the lights off on a human being all at once from a distance. Look out, world. You've been warned. The shooting mechanics in Fallout 3 were clunky and awkward even for the time it came out. Using VATS is often the only way to make the combat not feel like a complete slog, as it takes the hassle out of aiming. VATS, or the Vault Tech Assisted Targeting System, will freeze time and allow you to select a target and spend AP, or action points, to attack specific parts of their body. This is Bethesda's way of translating the turn-based combat of the original Fallout games to the real-time action of Fallout 3. VATS is optional and requires you to craft your character a certain way to take full advantage, as the number of action points you have and accuracy while using it is tied to the attributes and perks that you pick. The game gets a pass for its subpar gunplay because it excels in so many places that it's easy to take the focus away from where it's lacking. We take a picture with our dad after claiming our first victim, a rad roach who made the mistake of crossing our path. We flash forward again, now 16 years old. We are about to take the infamous GOAT exam. This aptitude test decides the future of young vault dwellers based on how they answer a battery of personality questions. Our dad looks us over before class, ensuring we aren't sick or trying to skip school. We had an opportunity to ask about our mother, and he told us she was a great woman who loved us very much.
And she was passionate about life, about love. But most of all, she was passionate about you.
Off to class, we see the same kids from our 10th birthday party, bullying our friend Amata. I have my own business to attend to though. If I can save Amata in the process, great. But Butch is gonna pay for trying to steal my sweet roll. I launched a volley of atomic hammer fists at his stupid face, until he was rendered limp. I tossed his unconscious body down a nearby stairwell. Blunt force brain trauma just moments before taking the most important test of his life should be enough to remind him not to mess with such a big boy. Now it's time to take the GOAT. Our teacher instructed us to our seats and administered the 10 questions to decide our fate. Each question asked us what we would do in different scenarios, such as a crazed scientist comes up to you and says, "I'm going to put my quantum harmonizer in your photonic resonation chamber." How do you respond? Congratulations, you made one of the Vault's baseball teams. What position do you want to play? Your grandmother invites you for tea, but to your surprise, she hands you a pistol and orders you to kill another Vault resident. What do you do? Your answers on the multiple choice test will dictate what skills your character will have tagged. Tag skills will instantly get a 15-point boost. Mr. Broch, your teacher, will tell you what job he selected you to do.
It says here you're perfectly suited for a career as a waste management specialist. A specialist, mind you, not just a dabbler. Congratulations.
Take that, everyone who ever doubted me. It's not glamorous, but they would be wise not to upset the only person standing between them and a backed up toilet. Fallout 3 brilliantly weaves its tutorial into the story's prologue. As the game introduces you to the basics like walking, shooting, or creating your character, it does so organically within the world. You take your first steps as your character takes theirs as a toddler. You learn to handle a gun as your character is taught to shoot a BB gun at their 10th birthday party. Deciding how you want to play and how your character is built is not done through a menu disconnected from the game's world. It's a book you physically flip through. It's an aptitude test you take in school. You feel connected to your character in a way that few other games can match. We flash forward once again, this time 3 years later. Now 19 years old, we are abruptly woken up by Amada, who is panicking. The vault has always been a symbol of stability and safety, but in an instant has been thrown into disarray. Our father has escaped and chaos is unfolding. The overseer is struggling to restore order. Vault security is told to shoot us on sight, as they assume we were somehow involved. Amada came to us first, urging us to follow our father. She handed us a pistol and told us to find the overseer's office, where a tunnel beneath his desk would lead us to the exit. Against our will, we are forced to leave the only home we've ever known and dive headfirst into a nuclear wasteland we've spent our whole lives being afraid of. Rad roaches have invaded the vaults and went after Butch's mom, of all people.
You gotta help me! My mom's trapped in there with the rad roaches!
We can blow him off, leaving his mom to fend for herself as he watches in horror.
No, I'm not going back in there, I can't!
Or you can do what I did, which is hand him my trusty BB gun and watch him spend about 9.5 hours trying to kill the rat roaches with it.
Hey, I know it isn't much, but I want you to have my tunnel snake's jacket.
Moving on with our escape, we fight through the halls that once brought us comfort and peace. The diner where we celebrated our 10th birthday was no longer filled with joy and laughter. It was soaked in shadow, with one of the vault residents lying in cold blood. Amada's father was interrogating her outside the overseer's quarters. Intervening, we can save her from further torment.
Thank you! I told you my father wasn't himself.
By accessing his personal terminal, we can open the tunnel. I pushed on. Amada met me near the great metal door to say goodbye. I had a duty to leave, and she had a duty to stay, despite being our only true friend. The savage wastes were our only companion now. Everyone in the vault is told that the door is sealed shut, never to be opened for any reason, but that reality was shattered twice in a matter of hours. The vault security rushed towards me as I stepped past the threshold to the cave leading outside, and they didn't dare follow me. I would need supplies to survive out in the harsh world above, so I dropped them all with the pistol Amada gave me, and took their clothes. The vault door screeches closed behind me. My only direction now is forward. Stepping out of Vault 101 is an all-time great moment in gaming. After spending the opening hour stuck in the cramped halls of the vault, we finally emerge into the capital wasteland. This is Bethesda games at their finest, exposing players to a massive and fascinating landscape that demands you turn every stone and uncover every story. There's a magic to seeing something off in the distance, a point of interest, and feeling empowered and excited that you can actually go there and check it out, confident that there is something worth exploring. This is one of the greatest examples of that feeling. As our eyes adjust to the harsh rays of natural light for the first time, we start to make out details. A city in ruin, swirling clouds of dust, and a makeshift settlement cobbled together from pre-war scrap. Yeah, this place has seen better days. The only reason we have to keep one foot in front of the other is to find our missing father. He left only hours before we did, so he can't have gone far, right? The closest thing we have to a lead is the nearby town of Megaton, where we can ask around, hoping someone there knows anything. With Bethesda's masterful design and execution, the player is naturally drawn towards Megaton upon leaving Vault 101. The bowl-shaped town was built around a live atomic bomb by those who were rejected entry into the vault. It was forged out of salvaged metal, mostly from pre-war airplanes, which explains the jet engine powering the main gate. Traveling traders often make stops outside the main entrance to do business with the people of Megaton. Once inside, the town sheriff, Lucas Sims, greets us with the warm friendliness you would expect from a post-nuclear mayor living out some cowboy fantasy.
Name's Lucas Sims, town sheriff, and mayor too when the need arises.
He keeps the peace around these here parts, but is not forthcoming with information about James. It was only after we offered to disarm the atomic bomb that he suddenly remembered that someone fitting our dad's description had come into town recently. He pointed us to the saloon, where Moriarty tends to keep tabs on the comings and goings of his patrons. As a show of good faith and the can-do spirit of the Vault Dwellers, I followed through with my word to disarm the nuke. It was not a formidable foe, as simply having an explosive skill over 25 was all it took. It's a wonder that Lucas Sims hasn't let anyone else tinker with it, someone he trusts. I'm a complete stranger. I just showed up out of the blue wearing a vault suit, refused to say anything to him.
Fine. Might help keep you out of trouble. I hope you're not a weirdo.
And was handed the keys to the continued survival of Megaton and its people? Come on, man. For my trouble, I was given a handsome sum of 100 caps and the deed to a house right here in town. My next stop was the saloon to inquire about my dad. I snuck around the back of the building because it was faster than walking through their front door. Moriarty was waiting for me on the other side, and totally unbothered that I broke into his bar.
Welcome to Moriarty's.
He recognized me as James's son, assuring me that he had just seen him and knew where he was headed. Moriarty will share the info, but not for free. It's a cruel world out here, and you only have as much as you can grab hold of. Survival means letting no opportunity pass by to take what you can, no matter who from, and hold it tight. Moriarty is teaching us that. Sure, he's friends with our dad, but that doesn't keep the lights on. He'll tell us what we want to know for a nominal fee. Should we prefer to keep our caps, we can also do a favor for him. He'll ask us to shake down a woman named Silver who owes him money. There's also the option to access his personal terminal, whose entries tell us what we want to know. I was content with parting ways with the caps I made, saving the town from atomic annihilation. He tells us that James set off to Galaxy News Radio, a building tucked away in the crumbling remains of downtown DC. Getting there means spelunking the tangled web of metros running beneath the city. The metros were the product of limitations. Loading the dense urban environment of DC in its entirety would be too much to ask of the Gamebryo engine running on the Xbox 360 or PS3 hardware. A compromise had to be made. Bethesda came up with separating DC into chunks connected by the metro tunnels. It gives the illusion that the ruins are a sprawling metropolis while still being easily digestible. Heading towards the Farragut West Metro Station, we embark on our first trip into the larger wastes, away from humanity or civility. What lies beyond Megaton is a world that wants to kill us. Still wearing the security armor from Vault 101, I came across some dead raiders outside the Super Duper Mart. They were killed by a giant domesticated mutated bear, and I took their armor. I'm a lone wanderer now. Might as well look the part. Raider armor has a fun way of letting my pale white skin shine wild and free. I look like Kratos f***ed Groucho Marx, and they had a kid that sucked. 19 years without the sun, well, do that to a boy. Before jumping into the dank, dark metro tubes, I was under fire from raiders. I took them down with ease, using the environment to my advantage. The many abandoned vehicles scattered across the world can be prompted to explode, causing a mini nuclear blast. In the early stages of Fallout 3, your character is weak, your resources are limited, and the enemies are plentiful. Pushing onward means taking moments of respite to gather supplies for what's next. The constant need to meticulously search every container or fallen enemy may seem tedious on paper, but it's in those moments of mindless scavenging that let you chew on the meat of this game. There is so much to consider as you wander the rubble. How did the world come to this? Where do I fit in? Is it beyond saving? Being forced to stop and smell the irradiated roses allows you to collect your thoughts along with your gear. The metro tunnels are dimly lit and filled with monsters both big and small. What starts as simple skirmishes against mole rats become battles versus the ghoulified leftovers of what was once human. Radiation has a way of corrupting everything it touches. Living things are twisted, mutated, and mangled into unholy abominations. Ghouls result from the human body losing that fight with Adam's glow. As ghoulification progresses, it strips more and more of their humanity away until all that's left is a feral husk. These things scared the shit out of me when I played Fallout 3 for the first time. This isn't a horror game, but it could have fooled me back in 2008. Markings are scrawled on the walls, pointing me towards the GNR outpost. The metro system can sometimes be tricky to navigate, so the helpful signs are very welcome. Hulking behemoths known as super mutants are also found here. Like ghouls, they were also human at one point. However, rather than the radiation ravaging their bodies, super mutants were subjected to the forced evolutionary virus, a man-made contagion built to create the next generation of man. Smarter, stronger, more resilient. They only got those last two things right. The super mutants we see in the Capital Wasteland are yoked up brutes who are dumb as rocks and overly aggressive. Many consider them the greatest threat to humanity as it struggles to reclaim its foothold in the world it destroyed. Arriving at my stop, I enter a war zone where the Brotherhood of Steel is trying to cut through a wall of super mutants standing between them and their outpost at Galaxy News Radio.
You can tag along if you want, but keep your head down and try not to do anything stupid.
We reach the GNR Plaza and must clear one last hurdle before I can enter and learn more about my dad. An oversized super mutant rages into the arena, tossing a Brotherhood soldier aside like a crumpled piece of paper. Another fallen BOS fighter dropped their Fat Man tactical nuclear catapult, and somehow everyone agreed that I would be the one to use it. Sarah Lyons, the one in charge, was also folded like a lawn chair and discarded. The only thing that can stop a bad guy with a fire hydrant club is a good guy with a tactical nuclear catapult.
Boy, thanks, mister.
Going inside, I found the man who runs the joint, 3Dog, the voice of the good fight and Galaxy News Radio. I need information, and 3Dog needs a new satellite relay dish. We had a deal, and I was off to the Museum of Technology to track the new dish down. There is a speech check that can be passed where 3Dog will tell you where James went without helping him, but such a big boy is not so good with words, so I had no choice but to give in. I needed to get to the mall, which meant swimming through more rivers of metro tunnels and taking on the denizens therein. Super mutants, raiders, and ghouls dotted all along the path, gobbling up countless rounds from my assault rifle and hunting rifle. Despite the gunplay being a sore spot for Fallout 3, the visceral satisfaction of seeing enemies erupt into red mist, their limbs being thrown from their bodies, make the combat feel intense and impactful. Striking someone will cause them to react depending on where they were hit. It's not just watching a health bar slowly tick down as bullets are eaten up, at least not at first. The enemies do become more spongy and annoying later on, but it doesn't get old to lock onto an enemy's head in vats, send a flurry of lead their way, and watch the gore explosion overtake them. The Museum of Technology is an archive of humanity's achievements. The Wright brothers' iconic flyer, Delta rocket, and a mock-up vault were all once proud symbols of man's dominion over the world. Now they sit in pieces, neglected for centuries. I need to find the Virgo 2 lunar lander and relieve it of its radio dish, all while more super mutants are shooting at me. With the dish in hand, I need to take it to the top of the Washington Monument and install it. Crossing the mall is a challenge. It's a concrete hellhole with trenches carving up its center. Super mutants spill from every crack, with only small pockets of humanity providing refuge from the danger they present. The Brotherhood of Steel maintains control of the Washington Monument, and getting there gives me quick access to its top, where I can drop the dish off. Returning to 3Dog, we are rewarded with the information we need. When our father stopped by, he tried to talk to 3Dog about his dreams of transforming the wasteland into a flourishing utopia, with water flowing free and clean for any and all. All 3Dog could remember was that James called it Project Purity, mentioned a woman named Dr. Lee, and ran off to Rivet City to find her. So I guess that's our next objective. Getting to Rivet City is simple. Follow the river as it winds to the southeast corner of the map. There we find an old aircraft carrier that has been converted into a city. Rivet City is the largest and most populated settlement in the Capital Wasteland. It shields itself from threats by only being accessible via a bridge that is extended at its discretion, and also by being an enormous metal tub that conventional weapons have no hope of penetrating. Its marketplace is a hub of commerce, whose stalls are stocked with useful gear and people to trade with. It's patrolled by an army of security personnel led by Harkness, who greets us at the door. He directs us to the science lab, where we can find Dr. Lee. She tells us that her father is in another castle, and so the goose chase continues. She says James took off to the Jefferson Memorial, the home of Project Purity. Dr. Lee is reluctant to join James in pursuing their dream once again, but that didn't stop him from going ahead with it anyway. He will not be deterred, but that also means we're still lagging behind his trail. The Jefferson Memorial is crawling with super mutants, and makes me question how the hell our dad is so effortlessly getting around the wasteland. Monsters beyond our wildest nightmares meet us with heavy resistance every step of the way. I'm expected to believe this scientist is just shredding his way through the ruins of DC with no trouble. I don't know. I followed his footsteps, and the journey wasn't littered with corpses until I made them myself. so I don't think he was fighting. Did he just casually walk past everything and the ghouls, raiders, and mutants just minded their own business? Who knows? James recorded a series of audio logs detailing his thoughts. Conveniently, there's one that tells us exactly where he went. He got word of a piece of technology that could be the key to unlocking Project Purity, called the GECK, or Garden of Eden Creation Kit, capable of terraforming even the most inhospitable environments into a paradise. If he can get his hands on one, he can use its components to get his dream off the ground. Unsure of its potential, James sets out to Vault 112, where its creator went before the Great War. Fallout 3's main quest is structured so that savvy wanderers can skip certain quests if they know where to go. Straight out of Vault 101, you can go directly to Rivet City and talk to Dr. Lee. You can go to the Jefferson Memorial to find the audio logs, or you can go to Smith Casey's garage and find her father without dealing with Moriarty or Galaxy News Radio. Doing so can cause you to miss out on some experience points or other rewards for completing quests, but still, seeing a game be open to having its sequence broken is refreshing. That ability to circumvent many of the opening quests is almost an act of mercy on Bethesda's part. Once you leave the vault, the actual narrative substance available to the player, if the main quest is followed as intended, is close to zero until you reach James. Scouring the world for our father is more of a curated tour of the Capital Wasteland that introduces you to the less intuitive parts of the map, such as downtown DC and the sprawling metro tunnels connecting its various sectors. There is almost no story beside the drip feed of what Dad was planning when he left the vault.
He mentioned some scientific mumbo-jumbo which didn't make sense to me. I mentioned something called Project Purity.
Something Project Purity, something he went that way. Sums up the main quest to this point, which is why it's good for us that it can be skipped entirely. So here's where it starts to get good. Towards the southwest portion of the map, far away from the big city and its dense urban center, we find an unassuming building plopped in the middle of nowhere. Few landmarks exist in these more rural areas to help guide our way. Tenpenny Tower stands out over the horizon, as do some undifferentiated houses, churches, and diners that pepper the lands ahead. It's a massive and welcome change from sifting through the crumbling concrete of the old world, in tight, threatening corridors where icons of the pre-war can be seen no matter what, acting as a North Star among the horrors. The world Bethesda built is diverse, at least as much as a post-apocalypse can be. So even though it lacks instantly recognizable landmarks as we distance ourselves from downtown, it makes up for it by delivering a sense of freedom and room to breathe. Smith Casey's garage is sitting on top of a whole-ass vault, and it's the next stop on our trip. The colossal vault door slides open with its signature ear-scraping sound. We are greeted by a robo-brain, urging us to put on our vault jumpsuit and hop into the available Tranquility Lounger. The absence of any meaningful security is surprising for a, vault, but it's nice to not be hassled for once.
Welcome to Vault 112, resident.
I'm not one to question a robot who asked me to get into a strange computer pod, so off I go into the wild digital yonder. White flashes fill my screen, and I'm transported to an idyllic village frozen in time. It's black and white, representing Americana in all its glory. A jaunty tune bumbles along as we take in the sights. A young kid living his best life, selling lemonade to the hordes of thirsty customers. Shiny and proud cars are in their driveway, dripping in American craftsmanship. And who could forget Playground Dog? Indeed, this is paradise, and I would be a fool to assume otherwise. Betty is manning the center of it all, watering the plants and waiting for us to approach. She wants to play a game, promising answers to my very obvious questions about what the f*** is going on. She asks that I simply make Timmy cry. He's had it too good for too long at the top of his lemonade empire, and it's time I took him down a notch. We have some options here. We could simply punch Timmy in the face, but that's too easy. We can convince him that his parents are getting a divorce and that it's all his fault, but that's a bit too close to home, game. We can kill one or both of his parents, but that's boorish and unbecoming of such a big boy. Instead, I'll tell him that his parents were tired of his shit and that they want to ship him off to military school to set him straight. There's a brochure on his family's dining room table, and showing it to him is all it takes to make him weep. Back to Betty, she congratulates us on our triumph over our enemies. Her next task is to rip a marriage apart. Once again, we have some options. The Rockwells are happily joined in matrimony, but to rupture that perfect love, we can convince Janet that her husband is a lousy cheater. Such a big boy still sucks at talking, so we'll need some evidence to support our claim. In the Simpson household, there is some lingerie lying on the bed. Stealing it, we can plant it on Roger's desk before telling Janet. Suppose instead that we want to make Roger leave his wife. In that case, we can read her journal and discover that Janet has a growing hate for Martha Simpson and fantasizes about clubbing her to death with a rolling pin. We can follow through with her wishes by doing it ourselves. Showing Roger his wife's diary, he will believe Janet snapped and killed Martha, causing him to rethink his relationship. Betty feeds us more information about our father.
He's here, and he is unharmed. He has merely been rendered unable to bother me.
The next part of Betty's game involved me killing Mabel Henderson. There are no rules as long as I am more creative than just punching her to death. There are a few ways to accomplish this. Her oven can be rigged to explode when she goes to bake a pie, a roller skate can be positioned so that she falls down the staircase, her robot can be programmed to treat her as a threat. I decided to go with loosening the chandelier hanging above her hallway, crushing her as she walked under it. Who knew Fallout 3 would turn into Hitman so quickly? Betty's final game is to don the legendary garb of the pint-sized slasher and take out the entire neighborhood with her blade. And this is where I decided to do the right thing. Tranquility Lane and its residents are being tortured by Betty, who is actually a Vault-Tec scientist named Stanislaus Braun. They are constantly killed and resurrected for his enjoyment. If I leave without freeing them, it will continue for potentially centuries. I can't release them from the Tranquility Loungers without killing them, so the next best thing is to end their suffering. Triggering the failsafe in the abandoned house will cause a military program to run that removes the safety guards for the users. If they are killed in the simulation, they are killed for real. This is the only way to ensure that Dr. Braun's reign will end and his subjects can be freed. As a result of his hubris, he designed it all so that he was immune to the failsafe. He cannot be killed and is now condemned to his creation, alone, forever. Braun tells me that the dog at the playground was our father the whole time. My dad and I are the only ones allowed to leave Tranquility Lane without letting the dark specter of death claim us. Finally, we are reunited with our father, after chasing him for hours. He expected to come to Vault 112 and find some holotapes or research notes about Dr. Braun's work. However, when he learned the man himself was still alive and hooked into a simulation, he took the opportunity to talk to Braun directly, not knowing he was a crazed lunatic. Had we not come along, I can only assume Dad would have stayed a cyberdog forever. James was, reasonably, surprised that we tracked him down. He is torn between his love for his only child and his dreams of liberating the wasteland from its scarcity of clean drinking water. He left us in the vault because it offered the best chance at safety, but it was no home for us without him. Plus, it pissed everybody off when he left and we had no choice. We agreed to help our father continue his work on Project Purity, but we'll need to get Dr. Lee on board. Once she hears the Gek is real and that James is convinced it'll work, she and her team of Rivet City scientists agree to pick up where they left off. The crew gathered their supplies and went to the Jefferson Memorial to set up shop and get things rolling. Despite me being here earlier, there were still super mutants inside that I would need to clear out. Nothing a little 10mm submachine gun action can't solve. Once the facility is secure, the scientists enter and begin their work. Dad sends us to do some busy work on the lower levels, switching on the flood control system, replacing fuses, and restarting the mainframe. You know, the grunt work. Before we join him back in the rotunda, James asks us to unblock the intake pipe. This meant climbing into a man-sized tunnel and turning a valve. Just as I unclog the pipe, a squadron of heavily armed soldiers sheathed in sinister black armor are dropped off by a weird-shaped helicopter. I can see this unfold because the pipe I'm inside of has a convenient hole for me to peer out of. We need to get back to the control room to save our dad, but those mysterious men, revealed to be Enclave soldiers, are now roaming the facility. In the rotunda, the Enclave leader, Colonel Autumn, demands we turn everything over to him, that he is part of the United States government and have the authority to take it over. Colonel Autumn and our dad are behind the airlock, dividing the control room from the rest of the rotunda, meaning we are helpless to watch the confrontation unfold. James feigns going along with the Enclave's wishes, before forcing the system to overload and release a lethal amount of radiation into the control room. Everyone on their side of the airlock was instantly killed, including our father, who was begging us to run away. He sacrificed himself to keep his dream alive and us safe. It's our duty now to complete his work and not let his death be in vain. This is meant to be a powerful moment in the game. The man our character has spent their entire life being raised by. The man who helped us take our first steps, shoot our first gun, and forge us into the person we are today. has ceased. Only this doesn't have nearly as much impact emotionally as it wants to. Sure, the character has a connection to James, but the player doesn't. We've only known him for a few brief flashbacks of our childhood, and for about 5 minutes after freeing him from Vault 112. It doesn't resonate because we hardly got to spend time with him. Everyone who knew him in the Capital Wasteland told us what kind of man he was, but we never saw it for ourselves. He wanted us to run, and we listened. An escape tunnel in the Jefferson Memorial led us through a sewer to safety. I was responsible now for keeping the remaining Project Purity team safe and escorting them to the Citadel, the Brotherhood of Steel's base of operations. The Brotherhood is the only force in the Wasteland that could feasibly do anything about the Enclave. Everyone made it safely to the Citadel, and we were introduced to another faction of heavily armed monster men. Unlike the Enclave though, these guys were friendly. They knew James and had profound respect for him and the work he was doing. Any friend of his is a friend of theirs. Dr. Lee is reluctant to receive their help, but understands that they are the last and only hope of keeping the dream alive and avenging James's death. The Brotherhood of Steel has the obligatory bullshit where they all act like they're too good for a lowly wastelander like me, but let me walk around because their leader said to be nice. Of course, this is set up so that it feels like something changed when they embrace me later as one of their own. I tell the Brotherhood that I'm looking for the Gek. The Garden of Eden creation kit was given to some vaults so they could rebuild society on the other side of the Great War. If we can locate which vaults have a Gek, we'll know where to go next. They granted me access to their Vault Tech archives to investigate that myself. After all, they're too busy with the Enclave. According to the archives, Vault 87, right here in the Capital Wasteland, was one of those Gek vaults. I went to Scribe Rothschild to tell him what I learned, and he shared what he knew about Vault 87 with his fancy screen board. The entrance to Vault 87 was struck directly by a nuclear bomb, and is still horribly irradiated to the point that even with the advanced tech of the Brotherhood, they were unable to find a way inside. However, the Lamplight caverns are located right next to where Vault 87 was constructed, so they may be connected. The Brotherhood decided it wasn't worth checking out for themselves, and so they can't be sure. Back to the rural parts of the map, I needed to find the Lamplight caverns. Getting there was easy, but getting in was not. Inside the cave was a gate guarded by a child, preventing anyone from going further. The child, Macready, was the mayor of their humble settlement, which was populated entirely by children. They don't take kindly to grown-ups, whom they call mungos. If I had picked the child at Hart Perk, I could quickly get past him with a check and carry on to Vault 87, but I didn't. The only way to get him to trust me enough to open the gate is to rescue his friends who were captured by slavers. This is one of the few times in Fallout 3's main quest that progress is tied to completing a side quest. Moriarty, 3Dog, and now Macready all withheld what I needed to continue my journey until I did something for them. Which makes sense, given the logic of the world. What's in it for them to help me? But it does get tiresome that this card is pulled at nearly every step of the main quest. To the game's credit, there are ways around these gates. Moriarty can be paid off or have his journal entries read, 3Dog can be convinced with a speech check, and Macready can be passed with a child at Hart Perk. Contrived or not, I need to get into Vault 87, so Paradise Falls is where I'm going next. Oh, would you look at that? The guard at the gate will only let me in if I agree to help him. I have no patience for this, especially if it's for aiding a bunch of slaver scum with their disgusting trade. He wants me to take his Mesmetron gun and use it to enslave a bunch of people across the wasteland. So I just started blasting. In my wake would be the corpses of the worst kind of folk the world has spawned. They will soon know that the balance of karma's scales will not favor them in this life or whatever one they end up in next. My hammer of justice will fall swiftly and harshly on their evil heads. I cast punishment with a flurry of screaming bullets, with each name written into their brass. I opened the pen with the captured people, including the kids from Little Lamplight. Everyone was ecstatic to be rescued, except for an old coot named Breadbox, who might as well have been on another planet. Macready holds up his end of the bargain, opens the gate into his town, and leads me to the back where he'll unlock the path into Vault 87. They call it Murder Pass because it's full of super mutants who use the vault as their home and, as I found out later, their nursery to turn the humans they grab from the wasteland into more of them. Vault 87 was one of the premier forced evolutionary virus experimentation sites. It continues its work even as human scientists have long since vacated. Navigating the decayed, rusty halls of the vaults, I inched closer to finding the Gek. In the FEV lab, buried deep in the complex, I found a super mutant locked in one of the containment cells. He was unlike the others. His name was Fox. He's well-read and gentle. He somehow maintained his mental state and intelligence even as his body transformed into a monstrosity. If I open the door to his cell, he agrees he'll help me grab the Gek, as it's located in a room that's smothered by radiation. We had a deal. Plus, having this dude on my side was a no-brainer. Fox stomps into the room with the Gek, takes it, and brings it back to me. As I make my escape from Vault 87, the Enclave ambushes me, knocking me unconscious before taking me to their base at Raven Rock. I have no idea how the Enclave got into the vaults. Did they ask nicely to let McCready open the gate for them? Did they cross the impossible sea of radiation atop the vault's proper entrance? Did they teleport? That remains to be seen. Little Lamplight isn't a wrecked pile of ash afterwards, so it's safe to say they didn't go that way, so I don't know how they got in. Colonel Autumn meets me as I wake up. He wants me to divulge the code required to start the purifier. I tell him that he would be better off f***ing himself than daring me to engage with his bullshit. We're interrupted by President Eden, the Enclave's leader. Left alone in the cell, President Eden then talks to me. He releases me from containment and asks me to visit him, ordering everyone to let me pass unharmed. The short break doesn't last long as Colonel Autumn hops on the intercom, telling the entire base to disobey the president and shoot me on sight. A power struggle has broken out within the Enclave's ranks. President Eden cannot wrest control of his men as they have sided with the colonel. We have been caught in the middle, and my only chance of getting out alive is to find the president as an all-out revolt overwhelms the robot security of the base, which is still under the command of Eden. Raven Rock is slick, clean, and untouched by the outside world. It's one of the few places built in the pre-war that retains its form even as the world outside continues to erode. As the Enclave is meant to be the continuation of the US government following the nuclear war, they were given untold resources to develop this base and go about their business. They devote their scientists and laboratories to studying deathclaws, feral ghouls, and weapons to aid in their effort of total control. They are among the most well-off factions in the Fallout series, but their internal strife has reduced them to a pathetic mess. Reaching President Eden, he confided in me that he plans to rid the wasteland of anything that wasn't pure, perfect, and untouched by mutation. Colonel Autumn came off as a total prick, but even he disagreed with the president's thinking, believing that there are less extreme ways to achieve their goals. This is what led to their divide. And so for Eden, the next best thing was for me to do his work. He wants me to impregnate the water purifier with a modified version of the FEV that will cleanse the world by killing anything that's been touched by radiation. He won't let me leave until I take it with me. I convinced him to self-destruct and take Raven Rock down with him. All that remains is retaking the water purifier from the Enclave. I will need the Brotherhood's help because the Jefferson Memorial has been turned into a fortress, wearing an energy barrier that normal means can't breach. It's disappointing that the main quest has funneled itself into this path. The only choice is to accept that the Brotherhood is good and the Enclave is bad, with no ability to side with the latter. Sure, you can give in to President Eden's demands and poison the water supply, but regardless of your choices, all roads lead to the same place. The player's agency in Fallout 3 comes down to how your character can approach situations in the world. Combat, exploration, and some scattered moral dilemmas are all you have control over. But the bones and fundamental structure of the story and encounters are rigid and linear. At times, it feels like a coloring book where you can color the shapes however you like, but the shapes are planned out from the start. The fate of the capital wasteland is written into the stars. All you can do is influence the hue of its shine. I return to the Citadel to debrief with Elder Lions and plan our next move. They decide the only way forward is a warpath blazed by the one and only Liberty Prime. Their giant f***off robot has played no role other than standing in the background as we run around the Brotherhood base. And you know what they say about Chekhov's robot. If you introduce a massive anti-communist death bot, you had better show it being used at some point. And man, does it ever get paid off. The final push against the Enclave is a fitting and explosive climax to the events of Fallout 3. Liberty Prime leads the way, slicing through waves of Enclave forces like the Lantern of Democracy, clearing a suffocating fog in humanity's darkest hour. The Enclave is heaving artillery towards us, raining down with thunderous impact. Prime is shrugging it off like a breeze, relentlessly marching onward and striking back with nuclear footballs and anti-communist catchphrases. Coming up to the bridge that connects the Jefferson Memorial to the mainland, Liberty Prime gives their energy fence one big affectionate hug, rendering it useless, and allowing us to rush into the facility for our last confrontation with Colonel Autumn. He's an easy out with his stupid trench coat and dinky pistol. Without the Broken Steel add-on installed, this is where the road ends. The game cannot be continued after this, so looting anything now is pointless. Sarah Lyons and I stand before the Purifier. Dr. Lee shouts at us through the intercom that it must be activated right now, or it will have a catastrophic meltdown and be destroyed. Either Sarah or the Lone Wanderer can start the Purifier. The chamber is subject to such high radiation levels that whoever enters will not come out. It's possible to have companions uniquely resistant to radiation, such as Sharon the Ghoul or Fox the Super Mutant, but they will refuse to go in on your behalf, claiming that it's our battle to fight.
No, I'm sorry, my companion, but no.
Greater good beware, I give myself to thee. The waters of life can flow free and clean for any and all. Grab your glasses and thirsty mouths, this wasteland shall be no more. And that's Fallout 3's main quest. Bethesda Game Studio is not known for featuring strong main quests in their work, and this was no exception. There were absolutely some standout moments, such as the Prologue in Vault 101 being a brilliant way to diegetically weave the tutorial and introduction to the world of Fallout into the game, by framing it within the character's upbringing before being released to the broader landscape of the Capital Wasteland. Tranquility Lane stands out as a truly unique and fascinating science fiction idea, and exploring the diverse areas of the wasteland from tight metro and sprawling urban sectors to wide open rural regions and bastions of civilization like Megaton and Rivet City was a joy. However, the number of quests that had me running around one step behind my father made the opening hours feel like filler or excuses to visit specific points of interest where more actual content could be found, like a glorified tour. When the real narrative substance presents itself, it offers little room for players to express themselves. The lack of meaningful choice or consequence in how the story ultimately plays out is unsatisfying, as the few decisions you make, like whether or not you place the FEV in the water supply, don't let you see the results of your actions, instead giving you a slideshow where you are told what happens. Obviously, with Broken Steel installed, you can see the fruits of your labor unfold in the wasteland, but that wasn't always part of the game. And it does feel like a sore spot to me, the lack of emotional resonance throughout the game, given the fact that players can make their character be however they want and tell whatever story they want throughout their travels. It still lacked any punch when it came to our relationship to our father and his sacrifice. There are very few characters throughout the main quest that you connect to on a deep level, and I find that to be disappointing. But Fallout 3 is still a game that offers so many amazing things in its exploration of the wider world, its side quests, and environments. It's a masterpiece, but its main quest is kinda mid. I hope you can find the people, places, and activities around you that make you happy, healthy, and kind. Your darkest moments don't define you, and there's always a tomorrow. I'll catch you next time. Have a nice day.